So we've got a new track plan. Let's rip this up and relay it. Just for now, I've removed the viaduct scene and parked it over to one side. And as I've explained in previous videos, all the modules you see on the board are removable. So now with these modules removed, it's much easier to just take the whole board out and work on it away from the layout. That way I can tip it on its side or tip it upside down to reinstall the point motors. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4 point motors installed on this. There's 2 on the double slip and a couple of points, so they shouldn't be too hard. When I put in this board, I used a large chocolate block fitting, so I could disconnect one board from another, so it shouldn't be too difficult to whip this board off, put it on a couple of A-frames and then work on it. But the first thing I'm going to do is just get in my own mind exactly how these lines will sweep coming off here, because currently the station is very straight. Those 4 lines just go straight through the station, and I think it would add a little bit more interest if I just put a slight curve, and also pulling those lines towards the front of the board will allow access for the flyover, which I've planned to come across at the far end. Taking advice from a previous video, I did a little groundwork to see what software packages are around for designing model railways, and there's a product called AnyRail, which is a kind of PC based product, or so I believe, and for those who embark on fruit based PC systems, i.e. Apple, there's something called Rail Modeler, and this is a copy of Rail Modeler Express, which is free as long as you don't install more than 50 components. After you've installed 50, then I think it's 38 quid to download the license. So I downloaded this product just to see what it was like, and it seems, you know, okay. I'm not the sharpest tool in the box, and I got on with it sort of reasonably well. The centre section is obviously where, you know, I will stand and the layout will go right around and join up, and these are the tracks here that come off the viaduct. Here's the main upline in the centre there, going underneath the incline, then up through a point, passes through a double slip, and then around onto the viaduct, and coming the other way there's the other line through the point, and then passes back down running parallel to the upline. Get away with it. Also up here there's another double slip which allows access to what will probably be a passer's line and a head shunt. So how do we get to this incline? Well, there's a point and a double slip, and that should allow the incline then to take shape, and as you can see it's in green, that runs over the top, and that will hopefully, with this design of software, you know, we can see how it will kind of take shape before we get around to actually building it. I haven't drawn in the remaining segments of the layout because then I would have had to pay the £38 to download it, and I wasn't too sure whether it was a product I liked. But as I've mentioned previously, the incline then will go up into a branch line terminus, a small terminus station, and that will be above the fiddle yard, and obviously all the other rails will then eventually join up. So that's the kind of current plan. So this one, which is a Rail Modeler Express, seems okay for Apple's, but I've no idea you know, how AnyRail is. I do suspect, looking at a couple of other YouTube videos, that AnyRail probably has the edge, because if you put your curves in that are too tight, it kind of goes red and shows you you're kind of pushing it beyond a second radius curve. I think it is getting too tight, but perhaps you want to download them and have a little go. If you've got any comments, please leave them in the comment section below, because I'm completely new to this. I did struggle at first trying to get this off the ground, and you know, we're all here to learn. So if you use any of these products, then please let us know how you get on. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. I notice that actually only about 25% of my viewers do. And also, if you click the little bell icon, then you'll get a notification when the next video is released. I made a video many months ago on whether it was best to use glue or pins to lay track. And having pulled these up, obviously with this track here, I've used some Copydex and some very fine Pico pins. So now's the time to see how easy this all comes back up again. And with the copy decks, it seems reasonably straightforward. What I have to watch out, of course, because it's a DCC layout, each piece of track will have a set of jumpers somewhere. But as you can see, this copy deck is lifting reasonably easily. And just there you can see the droppers, and the track join is right up here. But I don't need to disconnect them, I just need to ensure there's enough slack to pull it out of the way to allow this other board to come off. Now, with some of the track taken up, with the assistance of a fine fellow of another railway modeller, I can lift this board out of its position, then onto a couple of A-frames. I've double checked, everything underneath has been disconnected, so I just await good old Ian's arrival. Well, it's now on the A-frames and freestanding, so I can get to the underside quite easily, and in fact I can turn it over and work on the points. So what's the first thing to do now? It's to remove this redundant piece of track, which was the track that went to the long goods sidings. That point can go, as can that one, and then we need to figure out then where we're going to pop in the double slip and the other point to allow the access to come off to the incline. Before I do too much damage to the existing layout, I thought I'd better refit that hill scene just to make sure I don't do anything that may well impact on it, because the last thing I want to do is to rebuild that. And then, as you can see over here, I've removed some of the track, these 2 points, and obviously some of the cork. And I'll just show you sort of how my plan is kind of shaping up. I'd always planned on using a double slip and a left-hand medium radius point. So if I place these into this position here, hopefully you can see that it kind of ties together. That will become my fast down, if that kind of makes sense there. And then this will come up into the incline. And if I bring a little piece of incline in there, hopefully you can see where that will go. A little bit of track needs to go into this little section here, and we're kind of getting there. These tracks won't go straight into that board at right angles anymore. They're going to go at a slight angle to give it a curve as it runs into that board. And then hopefully, if I start lifting some of this, relaying it, it'll all kind of make sense. I may well lift these and relay them on a thicker base, but I think they'll go back into exactly the same place. These are obviously where the major change is going to be, so I need to cut out sections of this track and fiddle around until it fits. So with the hillside safely packed away, I've now removed both the up and the down lines and the ballast and the cork from the board. And the reason is, of course, my obsession with sound. So I've invested in some Woodland Scenic's foam track bed, and this stuff comes in 24-foot reels. And there's also a scar, if you like, or a cut down the centre there, and that's to make it easier to go around bends, because obviously as you go into the corner, the inside has less of a distance to travel than the outside. So the idea is you cut them in half, glue them into place, and then as you bend them around, hopefully you can see that the inside piece of foam ends up longer than the outside. Oh, straightforward, common sense. I've I've stenciled on the board where the sat track centre should be, so if I need to do these one at a time, I can kind of get it right. I'm also into super elevation, or as some people call it, cant, and that is the angle that the train will go around the layout at, i.e. when it goes around a corner, then it will necessarily bank. And there should be a video up in the corner here to show you how I did it. And you know how I hate my mathematics. 3 inches of cant in the real world at 4 millimeters to the foot. 3 inches, 3 fours are 12, a quarter, should mean I need 1 millimeter deep pieces of plastic card to glue to give it the right level of cant for a 3 inch. I may well give it a little bit more, probably not a 6 inch, but I may use 1.5 mil. But where do I put them? Well, I could glue them underneath, but then with this being in 2 pieces, only half of it would kind of lean over. So my intention is to glue this foam bed in place, and then glue small sections of 1 mil plastic card all the way along, and then when I lay the track on, we'll see if it looks good, and if it does, then we can glue the track in place. The glue I need to use is obviously going to be a glue that doesn't transmit sound, and to that end I've used Woodland Scenic's foam tack glue, so hopefully that should have decent sound properties, so that this sound doesn't go through this track bed. Obviously I won't use nails, it will just be purely glued down. This is the stuff here, foam tack glue from Woodland Scenics, number is ST1444, specially formulated for foam, also used with wood and cork. Water soluble, dries clear, and here's the big one, stays flexible, and therefore you shouldn't get the sound transmission, hopefully. It's the first time for everything, and it certainly is the first time that I've used this product. So fingers crossed, we'll see how it turns out. Of course now I can't see my little my marker line now, can I? That was obvious, wasn't it? There are some Woodland Scenic foam tacks, like sort of long nails. I did try them, but they wouldn't touch this chipboard on which this layout's mounted. But it does seem quite grabby, and whilst it's staying movable, it's not exactly sort of straightening out. So it seems pretty good. Hey, it's early days, Charlie. It's early days. Yeah, exactly the same as it was before. Of course, this Woodland Scenic's track bed is so much thicker than the ordinary 3 or 4 mil cork that I've always used in the past. But that's something I feel that you can hide quite easily, really, with just by bringing up the surrounding area, really. well, it might seem a little over the top, but there's all the track removed. Those two pieces of foam track bed are in, and these 2 points that I always intended to see if I could leave fitted, well, all I've done is remove the cork underlay, lifted the points gradually because they were only held down with Copydex, and they've come away okay. It clearly would have been a different matter if they'd been ballasted. I would have got this one off okay, but whether I would have got a double slip off, because these are somewhat fragile, because this is a code 75 as opposed to this code 100, and all I've used is converter fish plates. So what's next? Well, it's going to be tomorrow's another day, so it's to bring on this foam track bed and put everything else down. Now, besides these packs of 24-foot rolls, you can also buy single sheets of the foam track bed. And for point work, I think this is probably the best way to do it, rather than try to carve up the strips. Now, I've got an offcut because I actually use this on part of the viaduct, so we'll try and get that piece there underneath those 2 points. I laid a little bit more track bed to get it under the start of this point, and I've had the boards on their side, and I've replaced the actuating arms for the point motors, and I've replaced them with a longer wire, obviously because the initial wires weren't long enough, because now the thickness of this track bed I've put in. And then what I've done, because there's obviously droppers going here, there's the frog wire here, there's a frog wire there, and the main lines there, the main power feeds are here, and of course these 2 actuating arms here coming through. So I've sliced up the track bed and then slid it in, and then all I need to do now is make sure this is in the right place, and then I can cut the edges of this down once I'm happy with where it'll be, and then glue the points to the track bed, and I'll do it all using that Woodland Scenic's foam glue. So the first thing to do is glue the foam down, and then once that's secure in place, line up the points and then glue them down. Oops. Now with these 2 pieces here, what I've done is I've cut out a little hole there so that the point motor will move freely across the gap in the foam. So that's the foam in place. Now it's just a case of letting that dry, and then we'll check where the points are, that the points all work, and then we'll glue these down as well. So that all seems pretty straightforward. I won't bore you to death with laying the rest of it. I think this Woodland Scenic's foam track bed seems a good idea. So I'll progress with that right through down the station lines, and then get back to you in a week or 2 and show you the progress. So in the meantime, I'd like to thank, as usual, my patrons. Please don't forget to subscribe, and a video here and here should you have the time. And I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, take care, and bye-bye.